Kind of Funny Live 2 is happening May 28th and 29th. It's a 2-day event. The first day is going to be a completely ridiculous stage show. What we have planned this year completely blows last year out of the water. And I don't even know how that's possible because we were really stupid last year, and this year's somehow even stupider. Day 2, it's going to be a full day of meet and greets. We're hanging out with all of us. A bunch of Rooster Teeth people are there. Funhouse people are there. Achievement Hunter. It's going to be a grand old time. There's going to be some games to play. There's going to be signings. It's exciting. It's a really fun time. There's going to be exclusive merch. Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be exclusive merch. Go to kindoffunny.com/tickets to get your tickets today. There's a couple VIP tickets still available, so make sure if you want one of those, you act fast. What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode 70 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. I'm a little sad that we've moved on, but I feel like we're bigger as people now that we're past episode 69. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, now you can finally grow up. You can stop making all these jokes about it.
See, now that I don't know, like some people are suggesting that season 1 of the Gamescast is now over. So now we start over with another episode 1. But then I'm like,
Volume 2, episode 1.
I've been fucking up since the first and last ever for a while. But you know, I liked that idea. It was a good idea. So welcome to the first ever. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'd get confused. I would do it, but somewhere along the line, I'm going to get really fucked up. Every episode should just be episode 69-1, 69-2.
There you go. That's another way to do it.
It'll be like a Squares naming this show, and it'll be great.
Exactly. Well, we need to put some dashes in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then some weird Dissidian Dukakums at the end
some
of it.
Latin that's not really Latin.
Yeah.
Japanese Latin's what they call it.
But Ryan Clements will love it.
He will. He will fucking love it. Ryan Clements loves the show. I don't know if you know that.
I don't know that.
Told me that many times.
Interesting.
And by that, I mean, maybe once he said that he liked it one time. So good for him. I appreciate you, Ryan Clements.
Thanks, Ryan Clements, for being a viewer.
I appreciate all of you for giving so much love to episode 69. It was a very special time for all of us. But we're moving on now. We're growing up. We're mature. Things are great. I'm Tim Gettys, coolest dudes in video games. Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller. We're here to talk video games.
Yes.
Like fancy gents do. We do this every week here on the Kind of Funny Gamescast. You can get it early on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. If you throw us some dollars, you can get some goodies. That's what the kids say.
Yep.
If you don't want to give us money,
Get them goodies.
you can get them free over at youtube.com/kindoffunnygames.
Hey kids, you want some goodies?
Fergie was always talking about the boys wanting her goodies.
Fergie?
Yeah. Remember
I wonder
Fergie?
how Fergie's doing now.
I think pretty well, I imagine.
Really?
Yeah. She's got to have a lot of money.
That was such a weird story. You know, Black Eyed Peas.
What was the weird story?
The Black Eyed Peas were kind of just like a super underground, like whatever hip hop group, and all of a sudden they got Fergie.
Yeah,
and
it was weird.
Then they became like
a big deal,
the most commercial group of all time.
Yeah, it was weird because 311 shouts them out in 1999 and Come Original, and I didn't even know who they were at that time. And
Where is it? Give me some.
Black Eyed Peas, they come in full range. I think they say no effects. They come in full range. They show out a bunch of bands. They say Come Original probably 7,000 times in that song.
Okay.
But I didn't know who they were, and I remember looking them up, and they were a radically different band before the addition of the Fergie era.
Fergalicious.
The Fergie era. I called it the Fergie era.
Duchess of Ferg.
But she did have a song called Duchess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was the whole thing. There was like before this Fergie, there was another Fergie who was in the English Times.
Really?
That was very important.
Didn't know that.
Duchess of York. Is that right? Help me out here.
She went real history. She went real through this with this whole fucking theme.
I'm not making it up, dude.
There's a Duchess of York. Yes.
Yeah, Fergie.
That's not Fergie. Fergie isn't the Duchess of York.
No. But that Duchess of York was named Fergie, right? This redhead.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, remember this? Because again, remember the 80s, for some reason, everybody fucking cared about the UK. Like that was, Prince Charles and Lady Diana and Fergie, whatever. And then everybody's like, wait a second, that's dumb.
I don't remember any of this shit.
It was Princess Diana, not Lady Diana.
It doesn't matter. Did we care about that?
No.
We're more trying to nail down Fergie, goddammit. Yeah. And I know, I'm not saying the Fergie we know and love, who Peter Pants and the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah,
we're talking
about 2008, 2008. Not that whole ordeal.
Yeah.
Wait, she Peter Pants? That sounds familiar to me.
I mean, there was a picture going around.
Peter
Pants on stage, which...
Good for her. I don't care.
I mean, yeah, good for her. Do you, Fergie?
It's always when they deny it. You know what I mean? It's like when I almost pooped myself and then I just pooped in the bush and I was just like, I pooped in the bush and then it wasn't a thing. But if I would have denied while I was shitting in the bush in front of Colin Moriarty and some young Asian boy, if I would have denied that I was shitting in the bush, then it would have been a story.
Yeah. You think that boy still tells that story? He must tell that story.
He's a man now. Yeah. That's how time works. But yeah, of course he does. The time he got horribly scarred by two morons out there. Shitting in a bush, talking to each other.
So we usually talk about video games on the show, and we'll get to that eventually. But first off, like you heard in the little intro there, Kind of Funny Live, it's very, very close. As of this recording, it's 17 days away.
Jesus God.
Which is absolutely horrifying to me, but it's going to be freaking awesome. You should definitely come. There's a couple of VIP tickets left. There's going to be a whole bunch of exclusive merch. We're going to do cool shit. It's going to be a good old time. Now, getting right into the show. I want to talk directly to your heart, Greg.
Yeah.
Toys to Life games.
Oh.
What is their future? Yesterday, as of this recording, Disney Infinity canceled. No more. They're done. We're getting some Finding Dory stuff. We're getting some stuff they already announced. But once that's over in June,
whenever, soon, yeah.
Soon, it's done. Disney Infinity
closing up
shop. What are your thoughts on this?
Wow, what a surprise. You know, Colin yesterday when we were out in the living room working turned to me out on the couch and was just like, they just closed Disney Infinity. And it was like, what? Like, I was talking about it a bit on Colin and Greg Live. Like, it's crazy because it seems so out of the blue. And granted, like, you know, I'm for our audience, for Kind of Funny, right? I'm the arm to this Toys to Life genre because I'm so into Lego Dimensions, and that's what got me in, you know, to being on the Toys for Games podcast and talking to them and Brick and Choir and all these people, and you know, their Disney Infinity spinoff site and stuff like that, and hearing about that. So to do a PAX East panel about Toys to Life and have it be where we, you know, there was an expert for every one of it, and God forbid I was the expert on Lego Dimensions, but we went down to talking about what, you know, you expect to see out of your game, and the next thing in Disney Infinity was, oh, well, this, maybe that, maybe some vehicles, this, you know, and it was all ideas. It wasn't at all like, well, I've heard rumblings, or we know it didn't sell well, so there's concern here. It was just totally like, of course this is going to continue to go. Of course this is going to continue to be a thing, and all of a sudden for that to be gone just in a blink of an eye, let alone, and I'm talking about it strictly from the fan perspective, let alone Avalanche Studios perspective, where they're working on this game, and then Disney's like, we're done with games and we're pulling out, and this domino effect now of what that means. And to watch that spiral out yesterday was pretty fascinating because we talked about it, you know, with the numbers of it, like, okay, so clearly it wasn't making them money hand over fist or whatever. They were probably losing money on it to an extent. You figure this was still a popular thing, though. I was talking, you know, Brandon Jones, right? Like I, you know, this is not one of the jokes where I make a big deal about it. When I won the ambassador for Toys for Games this year, right? It was me and Brandon competing, me with Lego and him with Infinity, because Brandon, you know, I'm sure he still does, was doing a weekly Disney Infinity live stream where he would get in and play and screw around Toy Box and do all these different things. And that was popular, and that audience was into it. And the reaction on Twitter over, you know, the last 24 hours watching it be has been pretty astounding, I feel, where it has been so many people coming up and being like, damn, they were the coolest figures. A lot of, I'm saying, like, you know, I like Altano posted that. These were the coolest Star Wars figures that there ever were. People like Tom Taylor, who's a comic book writer, being like, my kids loved this game. And like, then you have just people who are like, just into it as a game. Like, not, they don't have kids, they just enjoy playing it themselves, and they're using it the proper way on like Amiibos or whatever, right? Or just on your desk, like talking about how much they're going to miss it and how much potential was there. And I think that's like, for me, it was interesting to watch it last night happen, and because at first my knee-jerk reaction coming from the Lego Dimensions camp was like, oh man, that sucks. And this, I mean, like the shock of it was like, that sucks, but it'll be cool to get Star Wars and Marvel and all of them into Lego Dimensions, right? Because they already have that relationship. And then it's like, oh shit, but what about John Vignacchi? What about the people? And like trying to wrestle with all those different emotions. And it was interesting to see even other people who are involved with the other games do it. You know, one of the TT Games guys was on last night, and he said something to the fact of like, oh man, it sucks that this happened. And he made a comment that made it sound like he was saying they beat them. And like, oh, you know, that was Lego Dimensions like put him out of business. That's paraphrasing, right? And everybody's like, whoa, over the line. And he deleted the tweet. You know, you're right. That's not what my intent was or whatever. But like in that one thing, what does that mean when we're always talking about Skylanders, Infinity, and Lego, right? And Lego being the, you know, the most recent to market. And then Infinity, where it seemed like they were on such an upswing, where it was, all right, Disney Infinity 1.0 comes out, and it's like, cool. I mean, for me, I'm like, baby's game, whatever. I'm not connected to the Disney people. It's not cool. Disney Infinity 2.0, they're like, guess what? Marvel. We have all the Marvel guys, and you're like, these figures are awesome. Again, I played it for a little bit. It was too simple for me, and I was like, okay, not for me. But then Wave 3 was Star Wars, and it was, you know, the movie about emotions or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? The Pixar movie where they were all in their head.
Oh, Inside Out.
Thank you, yeah. They had all these things, and the Star Wars one was, if you remember, pretty much the Star Wars game or whatever that was out. Like, the Battlefront came out, but this is the one where you had Kylo Ren, and you had all the other guys in there, and, you know, and the BB-88s.
Yes,
you actually got to play them.
The
and people loved that, you know what I mean? And it was, for me, what was interesting, and what I talked about after that GameStop expo we did, where we went and, you know, had John come on and show the stuff, or maybe it wasn't John at that time, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Came on and actually saw the Star Wars stuff. It was like, wow, this is such an evolution from what it was at Wave 1, what it was at Wave 2 even, and now like when it's 3, you are taking the characters and like, now you're in the X-Wing, now you're doing this, and it's getting closer and closer to what I like about Lego games figures removed, just Lego period, anything, Lego Star Wars, where it is taking the world, making it cute and doing something different in it. And so now to have Disney pull out of it, it's awesome from my side to be like, awesome, now we'll get them into Legos. It's terrible from the developer and fan side to see there's this game people actually cared about gone. And then as, again, somebody who cares about one of the other franchises, one of the other SKUs, whatever you want to call it, Lego Dimensions, it does make me go, are they making money? Yeah. It seems like Lego Dimensions did really well, but then again, I would have told you that Disney Infinity was probably doing fine. I didn't know the financials or how it was. And so what does that mean for how Lego does? What does that mean for how Skylanders does? Like where are we seeing the ceiling, or was it just Disney being like, this isn't an investment for us?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting to note that Disney is just not making games period anymore. Right. So it's not just Infinity. They're just straight up like, we out. You know, I think that obviously says a lot, that like, it's not necessarily that they weren't making money. They weren't making enough money.
Sure.
I think is the key thing. And I think that it's obvious when you look at the franchises that they have, like Marvel, Star Wars, and just Disney and Pixar, like those alone, it's like, come on, you don't really get much bigger than that. And it's like when Disney also owns ESPN and ABC and like all these other, so many verticals, they just are on top of them and just owning every single element to it. It's like, if they're not making an obscene amount of money from games,
right?
If they're not Activisioning it up, like, why not? Why do it?
This is an interesting thing because it honestly, for me, is super exciting, and I can only really, I guess, speak, in terms of, well, I know. Okay, so let's look at Disney in general. They own Star Wars, they own Marvel, right? And for me, the really exciting thing was when we went and saw Age of Ultron. And we didn't realize we were like, oh, they were like, do you want to come see Age of Ultron early? We're like, yeah, sure. And we got there and there's all these press people with notebooks like, what's going on? Like, oh, they're announcing how Marvel's going to handle games from here on out. And Marvel's whole thing at the time, remember, was like, we're partnering with Telltale. And this is an example of what we're talking about. We're no longer going to try to do this on our own. We're going to go partner with the top tier developers. We're not going to do it where we get a studio and try to make it our own and because that's so much work and it is so hard. And I'm not saying that Avalanche wasn't up to the task of making Infinity awesome, but clearly, I mean, just talking to the people about it, it didn't resonate in the way that I think Dimensions is something that I hear all the time, like, oh, I love it, and so does my kid, and like, it's a Lego game, and we play, but there's these references and whereas I really feel like Infinity is very much a kid's game with then awesome toys connected to it. And so for them to go like, all right, cool, we're not going to worry about how do we do that? We're going to partner up with it and actually put our money where our mouth is, right? And this then, what I'm talking about is excitement, right? You can see with Star Wars where they're taking this and getting we're getting Battlefront. We're talking about Battlefront 2. We're talking about this Amy game. We're talking about all these different games that are Star Wars licenses being given out and letting creators and developers do what they do best, right? Then it gets super exciting when, again, you allow yourself to dream and talk about that rumor that I will not let die of Sucker Punch working on Spider-Man, right? And that, of course, seems like such a crazy idea, but the more we talked about on that PS I Love You, the more I was like, this kind of makes sense. Like, give it to Sucker Punch, who are awesome at doing open world games, and let them do. And like this, I still think speaks to that of Marvel being like, of Disney being like, yeah, we can't do this on our own, and when we do it on our own, it's really time consuming and hard. Yeah. We'd rather go get the best of the best and give it to them and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, licensing goes a long way, and I mean, it's just easy math to look at it and be like, properties sell. That's it. So it's like having when you have Spider-Man, give that to a game developer that knows what they're doing.
Right.
That's gonna sell copies.
And that's the whole thing again. Like what you're talking about with money and how they can print money. It works in the exact same scenario we're talking about of getting them into Lego Dimensions. You know what I mean? I remember when Disney bought Star Wars, and I was like, well, that's cool, but we'll never see another Lego Star Wars game. And then here we were, and it's like, oh, they've just announced Force Awakens and this, that, and the other. You imagine that's so easy to be like, okay, cool. So now we're gonna put out the however they want to handle Dimensions this year, because they are teasing that they have to announce something soon because their final wave of figs just came out, so they got to get ready. Imagine E3, they'll say something, but cool. Like, here is the prequel set, here is the main trilogy set, and here's the Force Awakens set, and you have all these different minifigs in there that like I will buy in a heartbeat, right, for those level packs and have them and to go through and play that and mash them up with Superman and Batman and mash them up with Ghostbusters and do all this. And so it's the same with Marvel, right? Like I don't know how far along discussions were, how long this was telegraphed. Maybe they were already talking to Lego. You hope that way they can be on top of this stuff. But if you came out at E3 and you were like, yeah, so sad to see them go, but we've reached this deal, and here is this giant Marvel playset, and here's this giant Disney playset, and here, man, that'd be awesome. And that like is the same thing where I don't think that necessarily Disney board of directors or whoever is looking at Avalanche and being like, well, they're not nailing it with Infinity, but Lego sure is. I think they've had that relationship with Lego forever. They understand what Lego games are and TT games and stuff like that. So now to have that ability to have them go over that, that's awesome. And that then gets super interesting in terms of what does that mean for Skylanders versus Lego Dimensions.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like we're talking about like kind of the future of like Toys to Life and all that stuff. Like Skylanders, I mean, we're kind of outside of this whole thing, but is it a thing? Like, do you know any sales numbers or stuff that would back it either being a success or a failure at this point?
Colin will have to correct me. I know he's more of the numbers guy, but it seems like Activision always talks about it as it's doing extremely well. But I don't.
To this day though, because the thing is, a couple years back, you know, I know it was huge, it was like the Minecraft of the year,
right?
In context there, where it's just like something that all of us on the inside were just like, the fuck is this shit? Like Spyro looks stupid now. And then it was like, oh, damn, no, kids are actually like all over this thing. It's weird now because we've seen so much, especially with Amiibos and with the Lego and with the Disney and all of it, where you go to Target, you go to any toy store, which I frequent very often, way more often than I should. And the aisles are just dedicated to these Toys to Life games. Like the video game section is smaller than it's ever been, and half of it is these toys. And you walk through and then it's, you know, the rare Amiibos are gone.
Yeah.
There's a million Princess Peaches.
Yep.
And then Disney Infinity, they're stocked. Lego Dimension, stocked. Skylanders now has a really tiny little kiosk, and it's like, it looks like there's just a shit ton of them left.
Yeah, I think that, so my take on, I have multiple takes on this. The word is that Disney ate shit on Disney Infinity. So that's number one. They didn't make any money on it. They lost about $150 million, according to the Wall Street Journal writer. That's basically the budget of 3 AAA games that they lost on Disney Infinity. So the games either weren't selling, or what I think is more likely is that the upfront investment in doing these games is way higher, obviously, because they have to manufacture the toys, they have to model the toys, they have to test the toys, then they have to make the games, they have to keep all these people employed, they have to manufacture all this shit. They might be selling the games at a loss to make money on the toys or something. Like, I don't really know what their marketing, like what their budgetary plans were. But over that 3-year span, according to a Wall Street Journal writer on Twitter was saying that their write down is like $150 million, that they're out of the business completely now. So it wasn't like they weren't making enough money. They weren't making any money. And it goes back to what I was saying. I think I said it some time ago, a long time ago, which is that this Toys to Life thing is a fad, and it can't, and this thing can't be supported by multiple companies. And I said that when when Lego Dimensions actually was coming out, I was like, someone's got to go. And lo and behold, someone went. Now it sucks that this folded and affects people's employment and stuff like that. It's very sad. But my assumption is that this can't last forever, and that the only reason that Lego is probably going to be the winner here is because Lego is ubiquitous with built. They have a clever way to make it more than just putting a toy on a portal, which is not that exciting after a while. And that goes back to what Greg was saying about Amiibos. Like, Amiibos aren't popular by any stretch of the imagination because of their functionality with games. They're like the only way you can get Nintendo toys.
Yeah, the cool statuettes to have on your desk.
So like, if those things were shitty and were tied to tethering to your Wii U, they would sell like garbage, but that's not what they're all about. So we have some market evidence that this stuff isn't maybe as big as you'd think. And the fact that Disney took such a huge loss on it, I think Activision actually makes money.
I was going to say, the stats I have for you on Skylanders is this. As of February 2015, the Skylanders series has crossed the threshold of $3 billion in sales, with 175 million toys sold since 2011, making the series one of the top 20 highest selling video game franchises of all time.
Right.
As of 2015, over 250 million toys were sold.
Right. So in about a 5 or 6 year period, they're selling 50 million toys or so a year.
I'd be really interested though in what in this last year was.
I know. It's hard to get
that. February 2015, there wasn't any competition besides Amiibo, which doesn't exactly.
Well, Infinity
count.
was there.
Anything
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Anything that depends on a peripheral is going to be ephemeral. It's not going to exist and last forever. And I think that's pretty obvious. And there are not many examples of that being not true. So I think this idea is cool, but I think that it's like I was saying when Lego started doing all this stuff, which is like, you got to get parents invested in this stuff. There's way too many of these things. They don't have that great of a functionality. Lego at least can be played with in some respect, I guess, like by itself when you're putting them together and there's some sort of like tactile response to it. I think that maybe the market's becoming a little bit more privy to the fact that this is kind of like not really a necessary way to play games. And this is just a way more expensive way to play games. Instead of buying Skylanders for $60, you're buying Skylanders for $60, plus you're like have to buy all these toys to activate things that should already be in the game. And I think that slowly people are starting to maybe realize like, well, that doesn't really make any sense. Like, why would we do this? Like, what is the point of this at all? The Lego thing is the only thing that makes sense. I think is actually quite clever. As far as like as Disney getting out of publishing, I think that it's smart, and I do think that to Greg's point, it's wise to mitigate risk by going to partners that are capable, like EA, and having them build games, and they're going they're going full bore with Respawn and with Visceral and all this. So
if I can say one thing to what you're saying, because I agree with most of it, if not all, is the fact that I think where Infinity has a problem, right, is that they were trying to have one foot in both places, if that makes sense. Skylanders, I think, is super successful and continues to be successful because it's aimed at kids, and it is a new IP, whereas like, yeah, we're totally outside of it because we never bothered to get into it, but those characters have stories and backstories, and when you're a kid and you're like, what do we do with these dumb things, right? Well, I remember being a kid and I would just sit there and play with my regular toys, and I think that is something that happens still, where kids finish Skylanders, take their toys to their friend's house and smash them together and tell stories or whatever and play in their room. Whereas I think with Infinity, it is this weird amiibo thing where it's like, I'll put them on my desk, I'll buy the figures, but I'm not playing the game, or I'm playing the game, but I have a better Captain America figure than that Captain America's toy. That's a statue. That's an in-action figure. And then Dimensions is the one where, at least, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, in my experience, not many people are putting on display, but then I think of Trevor Starkey, who turned me on to these awesome cases to put them in. Like, and but it's still to the point of, if I'm a kid and I'm playing with that, great, and I'm done with that figure, yeah, you pop them off the base and then you put them in your Lego playset, and they go in and out, and you can put other people in there, and the game encourages you to customize your portal with your own Legos and do this different stuff. And to your point of like, Skylanders, you have to buy these certain toys or whatever, and I can only speak to, I guess, Gen 1 or 2 Skylanders, where there were lockdown walls you couldn't get through. Lego Dimensions skirts that issue by allowing you to use in-game currency to hire a hero for X minutes, so you can get past this thing and activate that portal and stuff like that. So there's these weird, everybody's learning from each other and doing these weird little, dynamics, but it's the fact of Lego Dimensions delivering, and I'm totally biased, of course, delivering on a gameplay and toy level, whereas for all, where I think it is the fact that, I just saw Chobot and Blair with their son playing, and he's super excited and he's fooling around with it, right? And then there is nerds like me that are super excited and fooling around. I can't wait to build Slimer and stuff.
I mean, the thing with not with Lego Dimensions, with Disney Infinity is like that we saw the progression and we saw that game get better over the iterations, and once it got to 3, the Star Wars one, I mean, like, there was a solid game there.
Yeah,
it's like it got to the point that it really did make you think that 4 might be something that is for everybody in the way that Lego games tend to be.
Right, but you feel like they already not burned goodwill by them, but like so many people had already made up their minds, right? Like for me, it was Disney Infinity 2.0. Oh, cool. Sat down to play it, and I was like, oh, no, not for me. And it's like, I wouldn't go back now. And even with 3 or 4, if you were like, no, it's really coming on, I'd be like, great, but I missed it. It's not for me. I'm not on that carousel right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is, it had to happen at some point. I think that it definitely came out of nowhere. I feel like there hasn't been this type of news in the games industry for a while, where, yesterday I was in here for some reason on my computer, and it came up, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
What? Like, that's just so abrupt. But, because especially like you think back to last E3, we're coming up on this E3, so a year ago, it was going real strong. Like, at least
John Vignacchi was on our show, right, with all the Star Wars figures, and we all talked about how awesome they were and how cool this was.
I just think that the risk is so high in making these kinds of games. Like, what I'm interested in is not what Activision made in revenue, but like what they spent. And now I'm sure that they made a profit, but like, you have to, like, there's a greater dimension to making these games. Like, you have to assume that the game Toys from what is it?
Toys to Life?
No, the studio that makes
which one?
Skylanders is
Bob's playset. Bob's
Toys from Bob or something like that. It's some, I don't know. You'll look it up, I guess. Like, what is their investment to make the game? And
Toys for Bob.
Toys for Bob. And then like, what is their investment to make the game and then sustain the game and then sustain this team and to patch it and do all these kinds of things, add DLC and update it? Then like, what is the manufacturing cost? Well, what is the cost of like getting these figures sculpted and tested and all these kinds of things? Then you manufacture them, then you have to ship them and sell them. You have to market all of this, which is really expensive. Like, the cost is just way greater. And so the upside can be greater for Activision. It seems like it was, but the downside can be way worse, which is what it seems like is for Disney. Like, if you're losing or writing down and have to basically write down $150 million, like, you spent a lot of money on this. And, it's way out of whack with what a game should even cost to make. I mean, for instance, like, I think Epic was just talking about how when they were still making game like Gears of War and stuff like that, that their projection for Gears of War 4's budget was about $100 million. So Disney Infinity lost more money than like the budget of that game, like of what that game would have been. And so It's not as easy. Business is never as simple as like addition and subtraction. It's just not. I mean, there's a lot in those numbers. They probably had a lot of investments. They might be able to get some tax breaks. They might not be, and they're a huge company, so it's not going to like really hurt them.
Yeah.
But it's just way too complicated, and Toys to Life games are not immune to the market pressures of anything else. And there's only room for so many shooters. There's only room for so many MMOs. There's only room for so many MOBAs, and there's only room for so many Toys to Life games. And like the more people that jump on this bandwagon, the more death and fucking destruction is going to be seen, because these require so much more money and so much more investment. And you better believe that Disney Infinity closing down is going to hurt the entire vertical, because some people probably invested $500 or something in that for their kids. Sure. And they'll be like, fuck this.
Exactly.
And that's the end of that. And they just chose the wrong horse. And that sucks. And that's sad. So there's a lot to read into in this, not only in the way it affects Disney, and not only the way it affects Disney Infinity and the studio that unfortunately was shut down, but also I think it affects like everyone else, because you're not going to invest that kind of stuff shit twice. It's like when a parent's like, oh, my kid wants to play hockey, and so they buy him hockey equipment. They just want to play hockey anymore. It's like, well, like I don't know.
I'm
like,
follow you on the next baseball.
Yeah, it's like, well, you didn't
Yeah.
follow through on this. Like, why am I going to do this again? And it's not the kid's fault this time around. It's just to say he's just on cost for a game that's dead.
Yeah,
and it's not as easy as just going and buying a $60 game that works in perpetuity. Now there's nothing new coming out for this except for the 2 playsets that are still.
The thing that would be interesting about the chilling effect, how people react, how the market reacts, is the fact that I'd see this changing how other companies and brands want to address this. Because I have a source who was talking to me the other day, and it works at a thing with the stuff. And they were basically asking me, like, do you think Toys to Life is here to stay? Should we make a Toys to Life game? Like, in just my opinion, not like I'm green rubber stamping this. I think he was just asking if I had an opinion about it. And I was like, I think they're going to be around for a while more. I would not make your own. I would get in with somebody. And I think that's the thing. If Disney Infinity now folded, those properties go over to Lego, then I think it becomes a no-brainer of like, okay, at no point should we be making this. If we want to do this, let's go over there and talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, even thinking about it, like, just what companies in the world could do that and make that work. I think Disney is one of the things. They're like, all right, cool. Lego, definitely.
Right.
Activision, yeah, right. I would have never believed that.
But they got there first.
They got there first.
Yeah.
And they made it work with character. I mean, besides Spyro, which at that point no one gave any shits about.
Yeah.
Just
and still
unknown new characters. So that's interesting, because I don't think I could even name a single other conglomerate.
When we're off the air, you can guess. I'll let you run through. I'll give you 5 guesses.
I mean, yeah, I honestly don't even think I could. Yeah. So cool. Everyone go tweet at Trailer Jones and tell them you're sorry.
Is that still his Twitter handle? He hasn't changed it yet?
It's Trailer Jones.
Okay,
Yeah.
just making sure.
Yeah.
And John Vignacchi. Tell John Vignacchi loved him. John Vignacchi, one of the best people in the business, one of the most charismatic, fun guys who loved his job. I can't wait to see where he ends up next. But
Because he's gonna bring that passion wherever the fuck he goes.
Maybe he becomes kind of funny.
Cool.